You're listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by the National Association of Convenience Stores.
Welcome to Convenience Matters. We're here to talk about all things that matter about convenience, whether you're one of the 160 million people that go to a convenience store every day, or whether you're one of the 25,000 people here at the NACS Show. My name's Jeff Leonard. I'm with the National Association of Convenience Stores.
And I'm John Eichberger with the Fuels Institute at NACS. And Jeff, you know, we always talk about things that fuel you, fuel your car, fuel your body. Convenience stores are the central repository for everything that fuels your life, and no more so than the NACS Show. Here on site, we're talking to a lot of great people. We got a lot of great guest hosts and co-hosts helping us out. We're going to have a wonderful time learning what's going on in the market. So let's take a listen to what the attendees at the 2016 NACS Show had to say.
Hello, I'm Stephanie Sikorski. I'm with NACS, and I'm joined by
Nat Keller, also with NACS.
And today we're excited. We're here with Larry Thomas, but many of you listening may better recognize him as Seinfeld's Soup Nazi, the original soup man. So I have to admit, Nat and I are huge Seinfeld geeks, and we jumped at the opportunity to chat with you. And of course, we're curious about a few Seinfeld items from your past, but we're going to save that for the end and hook our listeners. So tell us what brought you to Atlanta and the NACS Show.
Well, we're here at the show because we have a line of soup. Backtrack a little bit. The soup is the soup that the episode of Seinfeld was written about, started by Al Yeganay in 1984 on 55th Street in Manhattan. So I have recently become sort of the spokesman for this company called the Original Soup Man.
How fitting.
Yeah, life imitating art, which imitated life in the first place. So it's getting confusing, but we have our soups in Tetra cartons in supermarkets. They're in Publix, Kroger's, Safeway, Winn-Dixie, just about every supermarket in the country carries our soup. So now we want to get into the convenience store market because, can you imagine, tootling down the freeway at 2 o'clock in the morning between Pomona and San Bernardino, and you stop into a gas station and you eat a bowl of lobster bisque. It's crazy, but we want to do that, and so that's why we're here. We're showing off our convenience store friendly way of serving the soup. The more upscale stores can have it in the actual ladling out tureens where we sell it as 1 gallon bags and so forth. And then for the smaller places, we have a kind of heat and serve microwave product. It's in an 11-ounce carton, and it comes with a little cup, and you do all that.
So it sounds like soon we might be able to say there is soup for you.
There is. Well, unfortunately for me, in this position I'm in, I always have to say soup for you.
There we go.
I can't say the other word anymore.
So, Larry, I think you have a long history with working in retail and working in the restaurant business, right? Your father owned a restaurant?
My father was a restaurant owner, and as a little kid, I got to, go into the kitchen and all the things that make you go, I am never going to be in this business.
But here you are.
Lo and behold.
So how did growing up in that type of business shape kind of your life, your values, who you are today?
The food, Like I always tell people when we're out and someone says, "Oh, the lasagna is really good here," I go, "I can't. My dad spoiled me. He made like the best lasagna in Manhattan," and but it made a cook out of me, and a real foodie because my father was such a good cook, and my mother didn't know how to cook at all. So I started to cook myself, and it just I just have an appreciation for food that's good. Like one of my mottos is, if I eat something during any given day and it's mediocre, I feel cheated. I feel like I want to give that day a do-over,
When you talked about foodie and the wanting to delight your senses, and taste buds certainly are one of those. And for the convenience industry, there's a big push towards food, and that's a lot of what we're talking about here at the NACS Show. How does the restaurant business parallel to convenience stores, or what are you seeing?
Well, it is kind of a parallel because one of the things I'm seeing in the entire restaurant business is the trend toward gourmet. Really, sometimes it amazes me how many, any given city, how many really good restaurants and good chefs there are in these restaurants. And you can see it on television, more chefs cooking shows, people are suddenly now leaning into gourmet food, and you definitely see that reflected in convenience stores. Anytime you walk in, you're going like, oh, wow, branded names that we know are in. It's not just like when I was a teenager, I worked in a liquor store, and we had these sandwiches, these packaged sandwiches, and we didn't have microwaves at that time. Let's just say it was that long ago. So I had kind of a little toaster oven sort of idea, and you'd put one of these sandwiches in, and it was just like that awful, overcooked, well-done beef and a piece of cheddar cheese product, And it's like that's what you had in a convenience store in those days.
Well, and
Times
grab and go,
changed.
yes, exactly. Grab and go doesn't have to be bad.
Yeah,
anymore.
it can be something really good. And you find that. You go into a convenience store and you see really good things. And again, that's, as the original Soup Man, that's what we're really looking for, is to really delight people, because our lobster bisque, which is our sort of flagship soup, not only at the legendary soup stand on 55th and 8th is it the #1 seller, but in the Tetra cartons, I think it is too. And it's a pretty upscale, delicious product, any way you look at it. So to think that you can get something like that in a convenience store is such a great idea.
Now, Nat and I are both in marketing, and hearing that the original Soup Man now has a line of soups, branding is so important. How does that change the way that you're doing something? Or for convenience retailers that are looking to get into the business, brand is important.
It is important. It's something that people recognize. If they see something they already know to be of quality, then it's sold. That's a major selling point. And anywhere you go, a lot of things are being branded these days by the chef's name. Like I was just in Las Vegas recently, and the Palazzo is one casino where they're really trying to push the restaurants in it. And they've got like a Wolfgang Puck. They've got about 4 or 5 famous chefs having little
Bobby
restaurants.
Flay, you got all of them, yeah.
So that's a big thing these days. People want to get something they know and they recognize.
So Larry, you had some time on the NACS Show floor. What did you think? What was it like down there?
I ate some really good food.
Did you?
Yeah, and some really good samples. And it's great. I was also saying as we were on our way up here, it's one of the biggest conventions I've seen. It's a lot of people, a lot of booths of names you know and you don't know,
right?
And a lot of people. So this is quite a convention. Very impressive to me.
You having a good time so far?
And I am. I'm having a good time. Well, all you got to do is feed me some good food, and I have a good time. So I'm having good samples. It's good sample day.
Great. So let's talk a little bit, because we can't stop thinking about Seinfeld. So to bring it back there and how you got your start, did you watch Seinfeld before you received the phone call?
Yes, I definitely was already a fan. My episode was season 7. I became a fan in season 3 after seeing the parking garage.
Oh, yeah.
And
the goldfish?
Yeah, I was married at the time to an actress. And she's from Bloomington, Indiana, so she's really Midwestern. I'm from Brooklyn, New York, so I'm, very East Coast. And we watched the episode, and at the end of the episode, I remember just saying, that was genius. That was comic genius. And I said, it's probably not going to last, though. She goes, why? And I said, because it's so specifically like a neurotic New York overthinking kind of, that's how I pictured how I saw it. And she goes, well, I'm from Bloomington, Indiana, and I thought it was hilarious. And I said, famous, prophetic words, well, maybe there's hope for it then.
And there was.
Maybe there's hope for this show called Seinfeld.
So
then we became big, huge fans and never missed it. I know everybody had a ritual. I hear so many different rituals when I meet Seinfeld fans. Ours was, we had a baby at the time, and so we couldn't at any given time sit there and watch network television because you never know when you're going to be interrupted.
Right.
So we would tape Seinfeld on Thursday nights and Frasier on Tuesday nights. And then on Sunday, we'd put our son Ben down for a nap, and then we'd make something fun like buffalo wings or whatever, and we'd watch Frasier and Seinfeld back to back, which was a great double feature. So that was our little ritual.
Oh, that's great. You know, I'm thinking of the episode, and I'm remembering Kramer befriending you. Kramer was such a crazy character. What was it like off camera with Michael Richards? Was he that zany as he was as a character?
Not at all. It's. I love to talk about how serious Michael Richards is.
Okay.
Julia,
That's
very
so surprising.
sweet, very nice. She loved to laugh. She loved to be cracked up, you know. Jason, such a nice guy. He was calling me La within about an hour of being on set. If you're not from New York, you have to, usually around the world, there are two versions of Lawrence and Larry. In New York, there's a third one. It's called La. La.
Just keep
Wow.
it short.
Yeah. And so he was doing that, and they were all great. And then, but I was marveling at Michael Richards. He would break everything down, and he actually had to sit down with the director, Andy Eckerman, at certain points. Like, he's more upset that he doesn't get the soup, the mulligatawny, more upset than losing Elaine's armoire.
Right.
You know, and he had to have that explained. He had to go, now, why exactly? I need to know, like, why is the soup that good? You know, or whatever. And Andy goes, well, it's just out on a limb. That's what we're doing here. The soup is so great that, and he's going, that's a little bit of a stretch. So he's a very serious guy that created probably one of the silliest, most haphazard characters in sitcom history. But he did it through real serious logic, amazingly enough. It was fun to watch him because I'm an actor and I take everything apart myself.
Right.
I don't think I'm as serious as Michael, but you know, I understand the process. But it was amazing working with them because, number one, they were a well-oiled machine, which is always wonderful to be around. Number two, individually, like I said, they were all very nice and very polite. Most amazing thing about Jerry Seinfeld is I've worked with him basically twice, once on his own show, and once in 2012, we did a Super Bowl spot for Acura. Both times, he had an idea for how my character should be played, and both times I talked him out of it.
Was that easy to do?
To my idea.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
You know? And that's a guy with a lot of power and a lot of money. He could easily be a my way or the highway type of guy, and he's not at all. So you can imagine that side of it was so wonderful to work with them and be around them. And then the other side of it is kind of an inside actors thing that only actors understand, but not all series television actors are secure. You know, I mean, you don't work, you don't get jobs, you're always unemployed, and then you finally get on a series where it's like a steady paycheck and steady work. You're going to show up every day and get acting work every day. So you think that would be enough. But what you don't realize until you get around them is the fact that they can be canceled, the fact that they could, like, let's say they have a great Tuesday night lead-in to Frasier or something like that. They could lose that and be moved to another night. So they're really a bunch of very nervous people.
Does that include you?
Well, see, I've never been a series regular, so that's what's funny. I've never known that. I'm a guest actor mostly. So, and I grew up going to a lot of different schools. My dad took off when I was young, and my mom, being a working single mother, always was looking for like a better neighborhood, you know, for my sister and I or whatever, and that included moving from New York to Los Angeles, somewhere in there. So I went to a lot of different schools, and I knew what it was like to be the new kid in school. And being a guest star on a series is the exact same thing. You show up, all these people know each other, they work together, they practically live together.
The new guy.
And you're the new guy, you know, and you're like sitting there and they're leaning over the table going like, oh, so how was the barbecue this weekend? Did Timmy like the new bicycle? And all this stuff. And you're just like sitting there like, I don't know any of these people or what they're talking about. So I don't know that other side of it, but I can honestly say all the other sitcoms I've guested on, you can palpably feel that nervous energy of actors worrying that they're going to lose their good gig. You know, there's only one time I was ever afraid of being fired, and Gina Davis had a sitcom for about a season or two, and I did an episode of it. And there were 3 guest stars, and out of the 3, my part was kind of the smallest. And according to me, as a writer and director, I would have called it the most the part that could be gotten rid of, the most expendable.
Okay.
And during the course of the week, they fired the other 2 guest stars, not because of anything they did wrong. They just wrote out the parts.
They were done.
And so I spent the last, 2 or 3 days on that set, just panicking, because I'm going well, when are they going to fire me?
Right.
Yeah.
But other than that, I never know what it's like to have a job you're afraid of losing. And the Seinfeld characters, I guess this was the point in the first place, knew they weren't going anywhere.
Right.
I mean, by season 7, if anyone was going to get fired, it was the head of the network.
Right.
But it wasn't going to be any of them.
Yeah.
So they were great to be around in that aspect, too. So, it was a wonderful set to be. It was like being at Disneyland, whatever.
I bet.
You just didn't want to leave.
Yeah.
I remember leaving at the end of shoot night. And it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't want to walk through the stage door. I was like, no, I want to just stay here.
Just stay a little longer. So when we're talking about convenience stores, and one of the things that we see is that convenience stores are in a lot of movies, a lot of TV shows that we've talked about. Why do you think that is?
I don't know, but my episode of CSI, I played a convenience store owner.
Oh, tell us about that.
It's called Last Laugh, if you ever get to see it. It's basically about someone poisons bottled water, and some stand-up comedian drinks a bottle of water on stage and dies.
Jeez.
And then they trace it to my convenience store because some kid drinks a bottle of water in my store and he dies. So that was
terrible.
basically my scene, is walking with Warwick Davis through the convenience store and going I always tell these kids that if you open something in the store, you have to buy it or else it's stealing. So that was my big spiel in that. And wasn't the most exciting CSI character.
So you played a convenience store owner?
So I played
how
a
about
convenience store owner.
So Larry, if you had a convenience store, what would you name it?
If I had a convenience store, what would I name it? That's a very interesting question. I guess Larry's would be.
Lair.
I'd name it La.
La.
I like that. Now, with the soups that you have, one last question that I had about that was, is there a particular type of soup that people are drawn to?
I think mostly our seafood varieties, even though out of our 7 that we have, 3 of them are seafood, 4 are not. I think there's something about getting a decent seafood soup, because that's a treat. You're only going to get a good lobster bisque in a good restaurant or whatever, It's not something you really think you're going to find in the aisle of a
Do we have the
store.
same lineups that we remember from Seinfeld?
Mulligatawny.
So I'm pushing for mulligatawny to get into Tetra, but they're a little afraid not enough people know what it is. But we do have a great mulligatawny soup. And but what we have in Tetra is a lobster bisque, crab corn chowder. Both were mentioned in the episode. We have jambalaya, that was mentioned in the episode. We have chicken noodle and chicken gumbo. And then we have a gluten-free lentil. And our brand new soup that came out this season is shrimp bisque. So our 3 seafood soups are lobster bisque, shrimp bisque, and crab and corn chowder. But if you're wondering where crab and corn chowder gets mentioned in the episode, it's one of the ones she reads off at the end when she's found
when she's found all the recipes.
Secret recipes.
Crab corn chowder.
So how we're almost done, but we haven't heard you yet say the famous line.
No soup for you.
And what can we ask you, if someone who doesn't love convenience stores, perhaps you might say, no NACS Show for you.
No NACS Show for you.
Well, thank you, Larry, for spending a few minutes of your day with us, and best of luck with the soups.
Thank you, Larry.
Thanks, my pleasure.
You've been listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by NACS. For more information about the National Association of Convenience Stores, go to nacsonline.com.